Hello and welcome to another ATP Geopolitics Frontline update for the 17th of January 2023. Let's get straight to the overnight and other news. I hope that this won't be too long because there's an awful lot to go through actually. Okay, let's look at the Ukrainian statistics for the Russian losses for yesterday. Usual caveats, propaganda, inaccuracy. Russia don't provide the equivalent figures. Some pretty significant, well, there's a pretty significant uptick in the number of liquidated personnel, and this could be because there has been a hit to a HIMARS hit to somewhere else that has been sort of given some kind of equivalence to Makivka. It's not as big, but there was a group of soldiers who would come onto that who were grouped together. 3 tanks, 11 APCs, 5 artillery systems, 3 MLRS. So that's a good number in terms of artillery because those aren't able to now take on the Ukrainian positions. That's my go-to number really that I look at first. 7 vehicles and fuel tanks as well. But that 870 could be this particular hit I'm talking about. It could be a trickling through of the statistics coming through from Bakhmut. We'll go second, I guess, to Russia on fire, St. Petersburg shipyard. This could be some considerable fire, could be a problem for, I don't know, shipbuilding something. But apparently someone was testing a boiler plant, so no fire, no damage, no casualties, of course. Anyway, just thought I'd throw that one in there. Right, this is the one that's similar to Makivka, so although I don't think nearly half as bad. In Velika Nepetaika, or Nepeturka, just like in Makivka, Russian forces stationed themselves in a former school number 2, that was targeted. They were targeted, and allegedly the first and second floor are on fire, waiting for first visuals, or they're the visuals coming in. That is on the Dnipro River, so quite close to, well, that is the front line in Kherson, rather than being a HIMARS attack behind the line. So I don't know if it's HIMARS. It doesn't look like it is. There's not enough damage, so it could well be a artillery hit on that. So fair bit of stuff coming out. No details on casualties, but it's just indicative that, and indeed Zelensky said this last night, that they are continually hitting logistics and troop accumulations. It is going on every night and every day. And it's interesting that Zelensky, made that explicit in his speech last night. January the 14th, so a couple of days ago, but this is Howitzer, which is in Zaporizhia, being hit with incendiary munitions. This is a war crime. That's a civilian area. I think it's as simple as that. I don't have any compunction in laying that down. They need to explain themselves, the Russians. Okay, Howitzer is fairly close to the front line, but if you're going to be using incendiary munitions like that, I think that needs some kind of explaining for sure. Yeah, that is just here. Yeah, Howitzer there. So close to the front line, large enough settlement, large enough urban area. Hitting that with incendiary munitions is not cool. Okay, onto the military aid, and the British have come up really looking really good yesterday, and well done to Ben Wallace and the government for this. Underexposed but very important, the UK sends spare materials to refurbish up to 100 Ukrainian tanks and IFVs. This is a significant number that can be reassembled into brigades and contribute to the shift in balance the West wants to create on the ground. I will talk about this at greater length in my extra video because there's an awful lot in this package that's worthy of discussion. Obviously, the 14 Challenger tanks, 8 SPGs, but 22 to come later. 100 armored vehicles. Actually, that might be hundreds of armored vehicles. It depends. There are some versions of this where it could actually be an awful lot of armored vehicles. Some upgraded bulldogs. I'll give you some details of them. Dozens of UAVs, 100,000 artillery shells. Some saying that is actually the most important part of the package. Some people literally saying, there's no point having SPGs, for example, if you don't have the shells to go with them. 100 advanced missiles, so that looks like the Gimlers, but could also be Starstreak missiles as well, and spare parts and support for Ukrainian tanks and APCs. And I think there's bridge building vehicles and mine clearing vehicles as well thrown in. Whether they are like based on the Challenger tanks or some different vehicle, I don't know. But this is great. And in fact, Ben Wallace gave a really strong signal. Today's package, he says, is an important increase in Ukraine's capabilities. It means they can go from resisting to expelling Russian forces from Ukrainian soil. This is about saying we're not going to prevent, we're not just there to, or they're helping to stop Ukraine from losing, we're there to help them win. There's a big difference, I think, there. It sounds a bit abstract, but actually, it's a really big difference. We need to give them offensive weapons and start that ball rolling. I think the UK's really done that well. And another quote: while the tanks and the AS-90s will come from our stocks, along with their associated ammunition, a significant number of the other donations are being purchased from the open market or from supportive third-party countries. So UK does this a lot, and I guess that's going to be the ammunition rounds, particularly. We give stuff to Ukraine, but it doesn't always come from our stocks because actually we don't have very big stocks. Our armed forces have been depleted over successive governments and time. You know, in relation to what we spend our money on in other places like education, whatever. Uh, this war might change that going forward. I don't want to be hawkish about this. You know, fun fact: I've actually spoken on behalf of and argued and debated for Stop the War Coalition. I'm not a war hawk. I am a justice and fairness hawk, and I believe in the principles of the just war theory. Problems with the philosophy of that, but in principle, you know, you've got justified war going on from Ukraine's point of view, and it's completely unjustified from Russia's point of view. So I'm fully behind Ukraine, and we need to stop that. British Defence Minister Ben Wallace said that this year 20,000 Ukrainian servicemen will be trained in the country, and the Australian military will join the training. Excellent. In fact, for any Aussies out there, I had a little listen to Khe-Sanh this morning by Cold Chisel, which is a great Australian anthem to do with slightly different side of the war, to do with coming back from Vietnam. So anyway, that's awesome. Well done, Australia. Well done, UK. That's brilliant. Slovakia has delivered its 8th Susanna II howitzer to Ukraine. This delivery was made under the contract, which provided for the supply of 8 units of this type of weapon. So that's fantastic. Really good to see that getting there. So, and I've already talked about that. Now, this is doing the rounds, and I think this goes a long way to explain what's going on the front line at the moment. So you're seeing some advances made and a lot of effort being put into advances made in Bakhmut and the surrounding area. You've also seen some advances to the south of Avdiivka yesterday, which I'll be reporting on. Is this because Gerasimov has been given until March to get the Donbass region? If that is the case, so let's go back to our map. If that's the case, then he has till March to get all of this. So that's February. Possibly, if it's the end of March, it's 2.5 months to get all of this. They've advanced what, a few kilometers in months in the Bakhmut area. So that's going to be a hard job for him to do. But if they're willing to pile in loads of resources in order to get Bakhmut, which appears to be the case, then you know, is it achievable? I don't know, but it certainly seems to explain a renewed vigor around certain areas. And there's also increasing signs. I won't read this as a massive thread looking at loads of evidence, but basically there are increasing signs of an imminent second wave of mobilization in Russia, according to independent Russian media. The independent outlet Verstka says there are numerous indications that mobilization may start at any moment. But it's worth also remembering that Russia have 2 other things up their sleeves. One, the mobilized troops that haven't been sent to the front line yet, that are still training or in Belarus, etc., etc. There's like maybe 150,000 mobilized troops yet to be thrown onto the front lines. 2, they have their annual conscripts. Now, conscripts are supposedly not allowed into the war to fight. There was certainly in a foreign country, and there was a whole bunch of issues to do with conscripts being found to have been sent into Ukraine initially in the war, because that is against Russian law. But given that Russia has now formally annexed 4 territories and called them Russian territory, you can see actually what they might have been trying to do, which is allow their conscripts to be used in those 4 territories. So you have potentially 150,000 conscripts, which is normal, what they do on a yearly basis. I mean, they have, you know, widened all their mobilization rules and all sorts. So I don't know whether they're getting in more conscripts than they usually would, but you've got your conscripts and you've got the rest of the mobilized troops. So even without a larger mobilization drive going on, Russia can throw a whole bunch of people at these front lines. And as I've said, yeah, they might be poorly trained. Yeah, they might have poor equipment. But you look at Bakhmut and what's happened recently. You can. This is the Russian way of doing things. You can win territory by throwing people at it. It might be hugely costly, but if you don't particularly care about the lives of those people, then that's a calculation that Russia appear to be willing to make. Uh, so yes, mobilization might be happening, but Russia have a couple of other options as well that make matters worse for the Ukrainians. Yeah, the Ukrainians have better equipment, better training, better this and better that, but the Russians have a whole load of people they are willing to sacrifice. And finally, look out, there could be some missile attacks today. Those missile carriers are out in the Black Sea, and there's been talk about submarines in the Black Sea as well, out and about. There are at least 44 calibers can be fired. So maybe today, maybe tomorrow, expect some more missiles hitting Ukraine. Anyway, let's get to the front lines. I'm actually not going to the front lines now. This is the end of the news section, and I'm going to do a separate video because it was too long for my frontline update, and I need to tinker with it as well because my hands aren't very good today, and the map was going all over the place. So sorry, I'm going to have to do some editing. That's my multiple sclerosis playing merry havoc with me using a mouse. But yeah, please check out the frontline update when it comes out soon.